It's actually supposed to be folded, but it didn't work out that way, so you kind of have to follow it. It starts here, goes to, but there's something in the lines and it goes.
Super. Thank you
But
very
you need
much.
to also go on the website
On
for the public realm.
Public Realm Manual.
Hello, test.
I barely got the people on my
Great, that's a great tip. Thank you very
that
much.
I supposedly work with.
Yeah, because I don't want to keep looking up these regs.
Yeah, give me
No,
some.
I'm happy to do it, I just don't know.
Yeah, no, I know, that's why I brought them tonight. Just and unfortunately, I didn't have that PD, I don't have a machine to make PDFs and stuff.
Oh, I actually brought a,
That's actually good.
oh, you mean the PDF of the public record?
But yeah, all that stuff. I didn't understand your email. Is he now not going to put the wall in? You only referenced the umbrellas.
Yeah, they're still trying to figure out what to do about the wall, but they want to move forward on the umbrellas quickly so that they have them over the summer.
I saw that. That's
They're not going to anyway. Once they file, if you look at the public space website, if they file this month, it's heard 2 months later.
Right, but Katrina Felder said that they might be able to get them in to June. How are you?
How are you?
Good thing.
Oh, we're not doing the Hearst check tonight because we have to get good.
Welcome everybody to the May 20th, 2014 ANC 3F meeting. It looks like we have everyone here, so we have a quorum this evening. First order of business will be to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any additions or deletions or changes to the agenda? It doesn't have speakers. It just goes on to the computer. I'll speak up. Okay. Any changes to the agenda? No. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. So we will quickly to introduce ourselves. I'm Adam Tope, chair of the ANC, and we can start with Bob and work our way down.
I'm Bob Summerscott, the treasurer.
Mary Beth Ray, 3F3.
Maliki Nugent, 3F06, I'm the secretary.
Karen Perry, vice chair, 3F02, which is the Van Ness area.
Sally Gresham, 3F04.
Manoli Praniotakis, 3F05.
Great, thank you. So our first agenda item is commissioner announcements. We'll start with Bob and work our way down. If you have an announcement for the public, please feel free to tell it. Mary Beth.
I have 4 announcements. First of all, the Vision Committee members met with the new green teams today, and there are 4 green teams that, they're green teams that work in 4 different areas of the city, and our stretch of Connecticut Avenue at Van Ness is one of them. So we're very excited about having them here. The man who runs the program is named Brian Wood, and I've invited him to join our June 17th meeting to talk some more about the program. But the bottom line is that they're picking up litter, and they're available to erase or paint over graffiti as needed. They're also available to plant flowers and water them, which is very exciting. So anyway, stay tuned for more on the green teams. The second announcement is I'd like to congratulate Marlene Berlin and the Forest Hills Connection on the success of their first fundraiser. Did anybody here have a chance to attend that? No, it was amazing. We toured 3 artist studios in Forest Hills, and she had over 100 participants in the fundraiser. And it's just a great, it was a beautiful day, and the artist studios are amazing, and it was just an amazing community building event. So congratulations to the FHC. The third announcement is that Steve Sari of the DDOE, the Department of the Environment, met with me briefly and says that the erosion where Linian meets Soapstone Valley is funded. The repair of that erosion has been funded, and the work should begin within the next couple of months. He is scheduling meetings with the Department of Transportation, DDOT, as well as DC Water, PEPCO, and the National Park Service to try to address the erosion at Albemarle and 32nd Street. So he will keep us advised on next steps. Those are really messy, awful areas. Hopefully that'll get remediated soon. And the fourth and final announcement is that I learned last week that UDC has rented space in their building 52, which is the Acacia building that faces Connecticut Avenue. Since February, they have been renting space to the law students in court, which is like an indigent defender program and a representation program. There is further space available, and Barbara Jumper at UDC has offered to send me a description of that space. And so, working with the other ANC commissioners and the community, we hope to reach out to possible retailers. Maybe it's somebody selling things or a restaurant, whatever. But we're going to reach out to retailers because I think it would be a win-win situation to have a retailer in that space. It's been empty for quite a while. It's really kind of a hub for our neighborhood that could help attract more retailers, more interesting retail. And it would also be nice for UDC to have the income. So hopefully we'll have news on that next month. That's all.
You're all aware, of course, Bread First opened up on Tuesday, May 6th in our area. We approved the Sidewalk Cafe application last month, and you saw from my email today that they are now going to apply separately to add umbrellas to the Sidewalk Cafe. So they're working on that now, and we hope to have plans by middle of next week, I think. And then the only other announcement that I have is that on Wednesday, May 7th, Mary Che came to the neighborhood and walked with some of the parents and kids, some of the merged parents and kids who are in the area affected by the proposed boundary shift. She walked with them in the morning up to school, and it was an opportunity for the parents to speak to Councilmember Che about their views on the proposed boundary shift. It was a way to talk about it outside of the context of the larger school debate. This is something that narrowly affects this particular neighborhood. She came with 2 of her staffers, her education staffer and her scheduler, and it was a very, very good time. She spent about half an hour walking with the kids and the parents and then chatting with them afterwards. And it was an opportunity just to showcase the neighborhood and the feelings of the people in that area. That's all.
Do you have any announcements?
No, I have no announcements.
Yes, I have an announcement. Park Van Ness, the SOL project that you all know is under construction, big hole in the ground at 4455 Connecticut Avenue. We are having actually this is the 3rd community meeting. The flyer is at the front, Thursday, May the 29th at 7 o'clock in this room. They will be giving Saul representatives and Clark, and DDOT will be giving a presentation of the construction progress and also the traffic control plan for the next phase. They finished their raise phase on June the 1st, supposedly. That's how long their permit lasts. At that point, they have to go for another traffic control plan with DDOT. So I hope, if anybody's interested, hope you can make that meeting. It's next Thursday at 7 o'clock in this room. That's all I have.
Great. Well, following on from what Commissioner Nugent said about the other side of the school boundary and student reassignment process, the process goes on. The Ward 3 Board of Education, State Board of Education member Laura Slover held a meeting at Wilson last week on so where things stood with a couple of the advisory committee members in the process, where it stood as it progresses. Councilmember Che was there, and again, Laura Slover held it, and they did commit to securing more data to allow the public to at least have a better understanding about how some of the decisions are being made. That's been a big gap in the process so far. The latest is that the expected updated recommendation is going to come from the advisory committee in late May, early June. In theory, it's going to be a consensus position. So I think late May is optimistic, and potentially anything is optimistic if they're truly going to try to get to consensus. But in theory, they're trying to get something out of the advisory process before the end of the school year, because the feeling is that if it comes out after the school year has ended, that it lacks legitimacy because people won't be necessarily around to absorb what the recommendations are. But the process then will continue through the summer with the public comment period, and the Deputy Mayor for Education making an announcement, making a final recommendation to the mayor probably in September. What the mayor then does with it is an open question, and then what happens after the election is even a more open question, as both of the candidates have effectively committed to scrapping much of the recommendations. So on another education note, it was very good news this past week where the Committee on Education, the Council's Committee on Education's markup for the FY15 budget included not only the budget request from the mayor for the renovations at Merch, plus an additional $3.5 million. When we passed a resolution calling for renovations, urging them to push the renovations, we asked that some of the money from 16 be considered in 15 so that the project can be accelerated. They actually, instead of moving money from 16 to 15, just increased the 15 amount, and it was offset by some delays on some projects that are frankly behind schedule in other parts of the city. Councilmember Che deserves a lot of credit, as does Drew Newman from her staff, and Councilmember Catania for championing it. It goes to the full committee in the next, I think at the end of the 28th or 29th. And if there is a desire to reach out to at-large members or Councilmember Che or any of the members of the council, including the chairman, there is always a chance that it could there could be something at the committee of the whole, but we're pretty confident that it's going to go forward. So that was good news from this past week. We'll get to the less good news later. Are we doing the grants issues
Yes.
later?
Later. Later.
Good. I'll save the use of the word dunderheaded until then.
All right, thank you. So next item on our agenda is our open forum. So if you have something to say, something about an issue in our ANC, things like that, you can come up to our microphone and speak. Don't speak on something on our agenda later. And introduce yourself. Just quickly say your name.
And where they live. It doesn't matter because that goes.
Evening, Sean Teep. I will not speak on the stop sign at 36th and Fessenden, which is why I'm here. But speaking about 36th Street, does anyone know if there's any movement to actually make that road an actual road again?
So I can answer a little bit. It's something we've been going back and forth with DDOT for quite some time. They wanted to wait until the work was done on the resurfacing of the stream, which isn't a great explanation, but it is one. The double-edged sword on that is if you make that nice I'm not saying that this is a good argument, but you make it a nice road and you're going to see even higher speeds. So obviously we want the road to be surfaced and we want it to be safe. So I don't have an answer for that right now, but it's part of the, I don't know, but I'll work on it for you.
Because yeah, I mean, I'm
Move down at the end of the block.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I mean, there are potholes galore. The road seems like it's falling apart.
It's falling away on the
There's,
side of the creek.
Well,
They're
that's-
aware.
there are constantly pedestrians who walk on the road who someone's going to get hit because, you know, there's no lighting, there's no sidewalk. So,
No, understood.
okay.
Just so you know, DDOT is aware of it. The TOA Division, Transportation Operations Administration, Manoli, it's his SMD, but I had contacted one of the representatives to look at it it's been since last August, and so they are aware about it, about the situation, but Manoli's working with them, as I am working with them on other streets like Davenport, Appleton. There's quite a few we're all working on.
Yeah. But no, I understand. It's a big problem.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to very briefly introduce myself. My name is Matthew Metz. I'm a field organizer with Nextdoor.com for this area here in DC. Just wanted to briefly introduce myself, let you know you'll probably see me around spreading the word about Nextdoor. Nextdoor, if you haven't heard of it yet, it's a free and private website. Then our sole mission is just to make communities safer and stronger, connecting neighbors online, talking about crime and safety, community events, really anything. It's a really powerful tool. It's certainly growing in this area, and I'm excited to be spreading the word here. And I'd love to talk to any of you about it later on. I'll be around after the meeting if you want. I've got a flyer on it. I'm happy to talk more and maybe get you guys signed up. So thank you very much, and find me at the end.
I'm Nicole Schneider, and I live over on Fessenden Street, and I don't want to address the stop sign, but I want to say I was almost hit this afternoon at the corner of 36th and Fessenden. So it was pretty scary because they didn't stop, and I was in the pedestrian crosswalk. What I'm concerned about is to put on your docket for later is there's construction going on at the Zach's house at the end of Fessenden Street, the 3300 block, and although you wonderfully fixed up the alley, it is a wreck again. The construction people have completely churned up all the paving that was just put on, and it will be worse because they're just starting. So further down the line, maybe we could have them repave the alley.
Why not have the construction company pave the alley?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Have the
They should be
construction
contacted.
company repave the alley.
Name of the, I'd be interested to get the name, but I think you
I'll
have my
send
email.
it to you, yeah, and it's, so.
Thank you.
Tear down house? You mean the tear down house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Anyone else have anything to talk about? Okay. Next up is commissioner updates. So I know a bunch of us have some updates on some old business. I guess I'll start with an update on Intelsat. So thanks to our resolution, the owners of Intelsat actually reached out to us, so that was good. And they are supporting our resolution and also are opposing it for other reasons. So at this point, it is no longer being heard in May by the Historic Preservation Board and possibly in June. Additionally, I asked the owners if they do like a tour and a meeting to learn more about the history of the building, and they're pondering that. So I'll follow up with them again this week and see if we can set something up. I think that's really about it that I have right now on Intelsat. The next thing I'll update people on is 37th Street. Last meeting we passed a resolution to make no parking on one side of 37th Street. DDOT reached out to me. They had come up with some different plan, which is basically changing the parking along the side of the street where Hearst is to change how drop-offs work. It's sort of similar to our resolution. And they're also going to get the crosswalks painted. So basically, they're going to try this for 6 months, this new configuration of parking on 37th on the Hearst side. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, we'll go back and look at doing no parking on one side or not. So you should see those implemented in a couple months probably. Unfortunately, they're not very quick. Next up is the Burger King. Do you want to talk? I can talk.
Sure. So Adam and I had a conversation with representatives from the company that I guess owns or manages the Burger King on Connecticut. They are out of compliance with a number of conditions from 2009. They have moved into compliance on most of those. They've moved the dumpsters from the accessory lot to the Burger King lot, added a second trash can. They've started extermination services in the accessory lot. Planted 8 new shrubs apparently, though I didn't see them when I walked through yesterday. And lot sealing and repainting is going to begin this weekend, so they're going to start fixing up the lot itself. And they've ordered planters to separate the Burger King accessory lot. This is the lot at the back there, the accessory lot from the car wash. They're talking to DDOT about pervious paving, and they're looking into car and bike sharing. So that pretty much covers the things that were out of compliance from 2009. The ones that doesn't address specifically are the ones that are ongoing. So ongoing efforts to keep picking up the trash, to keep the rodents out, and that sort of thing. And then there are a number of new conditions that we had asked for in our resolution from 2 months ago, I guess it was now, that aren't addressed by this. But they're making an effort, it seems, to at least come into compliance with the 2009 conditions.
Great. Next, we have an update on Park Van Ness.
Yes.
Sorry, wait,
well-
can I just ask a question
Yeah.
about Burger King? Is it your sense that they're committed to staying?
They're making every effort. They're making a big push right now to try to come into compliance, which seems like that would be the case. 6 months from now, we'll see whether this is sustainable.
And is that profitable? Do we know? I had heard that they were not profitable and that
I
they
don't
were
know.
I have no idea.
considering.
I mean, I asked them if they were thinking of some other use in the future, and they said nothing. Staying as a Burger King.
And who owns it?
It's
Potomac Foods.
Burger King is
Foods
planning to stay.
Corporation.
That's
It's like they have franchisee. I think they have like 15 Burger Kings.
Yeah, they're up in Rockville.
Do they actually own the land?
Yeah.
Excuse me, but we can't really hear when you're having a conversation. If you could address us as you address each other, that would be nice.
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll speak up. So they own like 15 Burger Kings. I don't know much else.
Mary Beth, let me answer that. From what I've heard, they do plan on staying in the neighborhood.
And if the building's sold to someone else, or if another, food outlet or whatever moved in besides Burger King, then would the drive-through convey
Yes.
to the new
Yes.
occupant?
So would the parking lot, exempt the
Yeah.
back parking lot.
So is the car wash able to use the lot like they were doing?
No.
No.
Where are the cars stacking now?
Not my problem.
Well, I
I don't
understand,
know.
I'm just
I don't
asking.
Know. I don't know what they're gonna do. That's
They-
not. That's not.
There's a little garage just across from
Right.
the exit, and they're now drying their cars in front of that little garage. So they're not going into the Burger King lot per
Lot,
se.
okay.
But they, instead of having that big space
Yeah.
behind Burger King, now they have space for maybe 2 cars at a time.
Right, okay. Oh, we
Okay.
done?
I
Okay.
have one question on Intelsat, if I may.
Sure.
I understand that the owners changed their mind on historic designation because they couldn't get the 20% tax credit that we had heard about. Do we know anything about that?
I don't know the reasoning why.
Okay.
No.
I was just curious as to why they couldn't apply, get them.
Well, I was gonna ask a question, so you're saying that it will come up in June at the historic, or you're
So
not sure?
I talked to Historic Preservation. They say maybe June. They're not sure. I think there's some sort of procedural issues and other non-historic issues.
Right, because they
they're
haven't
trying to
put their
figure out.
staff report on, usually you see their
There's
staff
my
report.
understanding is there's an issue because the land's the federal government.
Yep,
And they're not
State
the federal
Department,
government.
actually.
So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of stuff.
Procedural
I
issues.
think
It's
lawyer
procedur-
stuff
yep.
people are
There's
working
a question
through.
whether the Historic Review Board, or Historic Preservation Review Board actually has authority
Yeah.
to grant historic status since it's on federal property.
right. That's,
That's the procedural thing, as I understand it.
That makes sense.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, can I do Park Van Ness now? The big hole in the ground? Well, I announced the upcoming meeting, but I wanted to give you all a status report on the construction. They're continuing with the excavation. Dump trucks are still coming out of the site. They are using their truck route. There's been some comments on where all the trucks are going from UDC and from Park Van Ness. Actually, I've checked on the truck routes and actually followed some of the dump trucks to see if they did it, and they did from our last ANC meeting. My understanding is some of these renegade trucks are coming from the Wisconsin Giant site. So if you see big semis, semis are not coming yet to Park Van Ness and to UDC from what I've gathered on the trucking information. But if you see something, report it to 311 up Connecticut Avenue if it's really large trucks. There's continued demolition of slabs, footings, and foundation walls. They hope to be finished with the loud hoe ram that makes a very loud, repetitive noise early in the morning by June 2nd, but it has kind of gotten less over the last 2 weeks. About 5 constituents asked if they could not use the hoe ram at 7 o'clock, and we were able to get them to do it a little later, between 7:30 and 8. They have put in the crane, as everyone has seen. The Miller and Long is the concrete company banner, and they will start concrete operations in the next 2 weeks roughly. They're going to be using a lot of basic materials and tools, power tools, hammers, skill saws, pneumatic nailers, air compressors, welding equipment, so you'll hear that kind of noise coming from the site after June 2nd, hopefully. Other than that, I understand they're in compliance with the National Park Service. They walk the site and try to keep Soapstone Park. If you see trees down in the park, that is what the Park Service has cut down. And they actually leave the trees there for the environment. I've gotten some calls on that, and Park Service wants those trees just left there. And that's about it on Park Van Ness. I have a report on the Forest Hills Playground.
Wait. Can I just, I've had a few constituents ask about the opening of the sidewalk at, in front of Park Van Ness. And I know you and I have talked about that, but I wonder if you might just share that
This
with
meeting will go over the new traffic control plan. At this point, I do not have anything to tell people for sure about what's going to happen with the sidewalk. At 2 previous meetings, Saul has said repeatedly, and it's been all in their presentations, that the sidewalk should remain closed because of safety concerns. There is no place to put a sidewalk. It is a big hole at the curb line, and it will be a big hole until the end of concrete construction for the parking garage, which will not be done until winter of this year. So the concrete has to come to grade before they could even put a sidewalk back or a temporary sidewalk. So I'm going to tell everybody that because that's what Saul has been repeatedly telling me and the community in every meeting. I suspect that they will say the same thing at the upcoming meeting. So the news is that
There's no news.
there's no news, and it will continue to be the same route that we have now to go across Connecticut at Albemarle and at Wyndham Place and walk down the west side of Connecticut Avenue.
Well, the only thing good I can say about that is hopefully it's sending more business to Bread First.
Right. And actually, a lot of people have gotten used to it. The biggest complaints I've been getting is the noise. And also, I've gotten some other things where people have actually written and said that the flagmen, where they stop the traffic so the roughly two dump trucks can go in at a time and come out at a time, people are almost hitting the flaggers, because they just don't want to stop. So, I mean, it's not always the fault of the contractor. It's also people are not being courteous. So we need to also kind of tell people to stop. The other thing is on the Forest Hills Playground, they are moving ahead with the construction, design build portion. They have awarded a contract from their RFP to CADCON Corporation, design builder. CADCON has done maybe 5, 6 playgrounds for the DC Play Initiative. I don't know which playgrounds they have done. I will find that out on Friday so we can go visit them, our task force team. They have, since May 7th, started with the landscape designer, civil engineer, arborist, have all been engaged. They are doing the geotechnical survey studies now on site, and they are supposedly doing construction documents. We are having the small task force made up of the Forest Hills Friends of Forest Hills Playground president and vice president, myself, and sometimes Marlene Boderland, are meeting with DPR and DGS, and hopefully CADCON on Friday with a site visit. Construction is to begin mid-June. The playground will be closed. They're closing the tennis courts. And so basically that whole west side of the playground will be closed off starting June, mid-June roughly. Construction is supposed to be completed September 30th, and then they're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony before the Halloween party that's done every year. That's all I have on that.
Great, thank you. Next up is a discussion with Superintendent Tara Morrison, head of Rock Creek Park. So, if you'd like to come on up.
And I would like to introduce
Sure.
Tara. Hi, Tara. I'm sorry I didn't get to greet you ahead of time. We're just delighted that Tara Morrison is available to meet with us today. Tara has been with the National Park Service since 1998. Her first position was as park ranger at the Boston African American National Historic Site. She later worked to preserve Underground Railroad sites and stories. She was selected in August of 2008 to serve as superintendent for the newly established African Burial Ground National Monument. Since March of 2011, Tara has served as superintendent of Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C., where she enjoys working with park staff and partners to engage local residents in enjoying, protecting, and preserving the parklands and structures managed under Rock Creek Park. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner, for inviting me to the rest of the commissioners. It's exciting to be here for me because, as was mentioned in my bio, we do have lots of neighbors of Rock Creek Park, and so it's a good opportunity to get out and speak with people in the neighborhoods that are adjacent to parklands, because we know that there are very many interests and opportunities for us to be working with people. So I always like to say I like to meet and establish relationships before there are problems. So we're working together toward progress. And I'll just open with a little bit about what's most exciting for us right now in the park, and in hopes that there'll be opportunities for us to engage with you all. Is Rock Creek Park will be 125 years old next year. So it's one of the very few parks in the system that actually predates the establishment of the National Park Service. In 2016, the Park Service will celebrate its centennial. And so we're really looking at next year, 2015, as an opportunity to raise the visibility of Rock Creek Park and to really look toward not only celebrating the accomplishment of being 125 years old, but really looking toward the next 125 years, and what we need to do to protect the lands so that they are there for the future generations to enjoy. I mean, you all know, I'm sure, the challenges that we're presented with. I mean, just if you go through the park now after the last 2 heavy rains that we had, we suffered and had some serious damage there. And so it's really incumbent upon us to think in 21st century ways about how we really move toward the future. And we're really lucky in that we have a partner in Rock Creek Conservancy, and some of you may have been familiar with them as FORCE, Friends of the Rock Creek Environment, but they really expanded their role and their mission to work with us on all of that is Rock Creek Park. So they're our primary partner that's planning the 125th anniversary, and I know they're going to start to be doing some community engagement of their own, so I'm sure they'll be in contact with the ANC. The other big effort that we have going on right now is actually for this summer, where we'll be commemorating the Battle of Fort Stevens, which was the only Civil War battle to be fought in the District of Columbia. So it's an opportunity to highlight the district's history and also this particular site, along with the other Civil War defenses of Washington that we protect and manage in Rock Creek Park. And although those sites are located in 3 different national parks, the program, Civil War Defenses of Washington program, is administered under Rock Creek Park. So I have a unique role in working with the program manager and the other parks to lead that effort. So those are just 2 commercials to really entice you and hopefully get you engaged in the efforts that are going on. Commissioner Ray I know we didn't get a chance to follow up on all of the items that might come up, but I know one topic of interest is the Broad Branch EA, and our park staff is in the process of scheduling a meeting with DDOT to go over the alternatives that were addressed in the EA, and then the park will be working with them to select a preferred alternative. I wasn't able to get a sense of the timeline of when we should expect to see something, or the public should expect to see something, but that's the most immediate next step. And another question that we had received in advance from Mr. Barden, and I don't know if he's here. We've exchanged emails, but we've never actually met.
Mr. Bardeen?
Yes.
Yes, he's not here, and he asked me to work with you on some of these questions he had
So
about
one was particularly about footbridges.
Correct.
And so we did have a chance to talk a little bit amongst the staff, actually just this morning, and there is an opportunity for us to have further conversation on that issue. So just for everyone who maybe hadn't seen, the question is, Mr. Bardeen had asked if the Park Service would support the installation of some small footbridges to make Soapstone Valley Trail a bit more accessible. And so we talked with our staff, and the installation of footbridges along the bottom of the valley is problematic because of the amount of the stream flow that moves during heavy rain events. But we are interested and happy to talk with you all, or anyone who's interested, about areas where we might be able to install footbridges or elevated trail services where appropriate. So,
Okay, he's specifically interested off of Wyndham Place.
Okay.
There's some hard terrain right at that area. And we also talked about the social path, maybe going to a social path versus what's there now. And that's where he was talking about footbridges.
Okay, so in the email exchange, there weren't specific locations, so I think the most appropriate next step would be to have a conversation with our Chief of Maintenance and Resource Management to determine where the appropriate locations might be.
And Tara, who is that?
That Don Kirk is our Chief of Maintenance.
Don?
Kirk, K-I-R-K.
Okay.
And Nick Bartolomeo is
Oh,
our
we know
Chief
Nick.
of Resource
Who we know, and we've
Yep.
had meetings with him. And then he asked you another question
Yes,
too.
the
Do you
DC
want to?
DC Water?
Yes.
Yes.
The sewer
That's
system.
mine, too.
The ones we've had lots of discussions about trees and,
Right,
and
and
we've
so-
met with them numerous times, some of us have.
That one, we're still waiting for additional information from DC Water. And I don't have a sense. I believe the last time we had a conversation with another ANC, which was in December, we talked about receiving something from DC Water in this spring, which is the time upon us now. And didn't have a chance to connect with them on that, but that's sort of the next step in the process. They're working on the environmental.
Right, they just gave out the contract to Hazen.
Sawyer and Hazen.
Sawyer and Hazen, that's doing the consulting work for them. And they said maybe in the next 2 months, I think they said June, 1st of July, they would have something for the community, hopefully for the Park Service is what I've heard. David asked you the question, is there a way that the Park Service can get the sewer out of, make the case for getting the sewers out of Soapstone Valley?
Where we are now is the same place we were in December. We're waiting to see what the options are from DC Water, and we'll evaluate that and move forward. So that's really where we are. Nothing has changed since then.
And he didn't ask the question, but he also wanted to know about the DDOE studies, especially at Albemarle and 32nd Street, and also at behind Park Van Ness. There are two, and they're actually, Mary Beth, you weren't here, reported that they're already working on the Linian, end of Linian Street.
Where it meets Soapstone Valley.
Where it meets Soapstone Valley. But the other 2 points are in Soapstone Valley and are a DDOE, I guess, what do you want to call it, project?
Right. I have to take that back. Because I don't-
Yeah, so we need to have more conversation with that because of the erosion problems.
Yeah, I mean, in short, it's stormwater that's causing erosion, and we're losing trees because of the erosion.
But I don't have a status on that, but I will definitely check.
And I made a report, you had not come in yet, about Park Van Ness, and that some of the trees had been taken down behind it, and people were calling me, because I guess Park Van Ness is my project in my single-member district, and they were very upset about it, so I had to go and find out about what was going on with the trees, and I was told by 2 of your staff members, can't think of his name right now, it'll come to me. Anyhow, he said, Riley, he said that, Jack Riley, Steve Riley? Okay, anyhow, he's under Nick. He said that the trees, they were doing properly what they had agreed to on taking some trees down, and the Park Service took down two large trees and have left them for the environment.
Okay.
So I just wanted you to know, I told the audience that. Okay.
I have a couple of other things. You know, I think of this as both a specific question and also kind of a general question, and that is, you know, because Rock Creek Park is in the middle of the city, you obviously have to coordinate and cooperate with these other agencies. But I drive that stretch of Broad Branch between Brandywine and Grant Road every day. And I look at those power lines that are dangling over the park, and I think, why the heck can't they bury those? Or, you know, get them off the road somehow. And the potholes are just, you know, crazy. But I guess, you know, philosophically, how can you all work with these other agencies? Maybe it's PEPCO, maybe it's DC Water, maybe it's DDOT. You know, how do you work with them, and how can you work with them better? And then how can we communicate our concerns? You know, do I go to you for those things? Do I go to PEPCO or DDOT, et cetera?
So let me start with the easy one, potholes.
Okay.
Which if they're on our roads, that's definitely our responsibility to handle. And I know, you know, not even just in DC alone, but all across the region, that's been a significant issue this year. So we are on top of it. It's taking us time to work through it. But if there are particular areas that are of concern, you can report them to me, and we'll see where they are, and just to make sure that our folks know where those are. Because what I say all the time to people is, we can't be everywhere all the time, so I welcome calls, well, particularly emails, so that we can track it where there are issues that we just might not be aware of, and then we can add it to our list to get on top of something like potholes.
So that would not be a 311 call?
Well, if it's on a Rock Creek Park
Right.
road, it
Right.
would come to the park.
Okay. And
So-
there would be
so
like a
beach-
website or
Yes.
email, or who would we?
Yeah.
Who
You
would we?
can, the best place would be to email, it's ROCR_superintendent@nps.gov. And that's our general email box that's monitored daily.
Can you
Okay.
repeat that?
ROCR,
And an underscore.
superintendent@nps.gov. Or 202-895-6004.
6604.
6004.
And those are general contact.
Yes.
And then what about like the power lines?
Right, so there, and actually, we just got a call about, it came from one of the council members' office where there needed to be coordination between DDOT, PEPCO, and the Park Service. So we really coordinate on those things and figure out whose responsibility is and how we need to address it, especially as it relates to trees being down and things like that. But again, if there are particular areas of concern that you would like us to look at, please do let us know. But managing an urban park, we definitely have very close communication with all the district agencies as well as utility companies. That's the business of the day for us.
I mean, do you think there's any possibility we could get those power lines
I
buried?
really don't know.
Okay.
I would have to take that back and
Okay.
Well,
what's what.
as you take that back, as Broad Branch is being rebuilt, that is the perfect time to
Right.
bury those lines.
Exactly.
The road is going to be apart anyway, so if that can be done, we'd appreciate it.
And I don't know if that was something that was addressed during the public comment period for that particular project. but
Well, it
we'll
was in
certainly
our
share that.
ANC resolution,
Yes.
for what that's worth.
But it was communicated, so that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah. Well, I just want to say, happy birthday, Rock Creek Park. That's so awesome, 125
Yes.
years. And just what I mean, it's the reason I bought a house in this neighborhood. And it's just a real jewel, and we're grateful for everything that you're doing to show leadership and care for this precious resource.
Thank you. And like I said, we'll definitely be back in touch as we move forward with the planning, because there will be opportunities to engage in the celebration and work projects and identifying needs. So lots of opportunities going forward.
Do you have time for a couple more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Karen, you have
I just have one question. One of the things also in the way of maintenance is the overhead lighting in the park. There are loads of places where the lights have been out forever. Is there a reason that they're not getting
I think
replaced?
that-
Is that? No.
The
Okay.
roadway is very nice because you put all new lights in on
Right,
Rock
and I know
Creek.
it was a
Yeah.
while on the Parkway with the lighting where we were having issues
Right.
and working through some of the challenges. But other than that, if
But
there are
there's-
specific locations,
Yeah, no,
let
because
us
there's
know.
certain areas that are very dark. And there's like, on the other side of Pierce Mill
Yeah.
is one area that's been out for, I don't know, a couple of years.
Oh, well, that sounds like a serious issue.
There's
There
some
must be a
areas,
reason behind that.
if
Could
you're
we
on the
use
road
that
and you take.
email address
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
to report
yeah,
it?
I think so.
Okay.
I have
Sally?
I just want to compliment you on the Mass Ave reconstruction coming off from Massachusetts Avenue and going on to Rock Creek Park. That is a huge improvement.
And there's some lights out there.
Okay. Okay, Karen. I was trying to compliment them on something. But that is a huge improvement. My husband wanted me to tell you that because he travels that every morning at 7 o'clock. And it's made a very big improvement for safety for everyone. I would like to ask, since we've had the big storms recently, the streams are very populated with major debris and junk and plastic. And I know we have the Rock Creek Conservancy and all the different nonprofit agencies that are organizations that do a lot of help because you don't have the resources, which numerous of us have helped on these cleanups. How are you all going to handle, I mean, some things are very dangerous in the stream. So how are you all handling getting a lot of that debris out of there?
When you say dangerous, what do you mean by dangerous?
Well,
Say
it's,
some other things are dangerous.
yeah, I mean, it's like kind of stopped up and I see people trying to climb over it because it's near the
So it's a
bank.
safety issue.
It's a safety issue, right.
Right, so I think we're still in the process of evaluating all of the issues, and we'll need to prioritize them, and safety is one thing that rises to the top.
Right.
So where there are areas that, and, we get a lot of calls or emails from park users who identify a particular area as a safety issue, we're doing our best to stay on top of it. I don't have the list of priorities here, but we are looking to address starting with there are a lot of down trees. So again, where things can be a safety issue and cause harm to people, getting on top of those things first, but also as it relates to the stream. And if there are people climbing in areas that we want to prevent, we need to
Right,
address
but I
that as
mean,
well.
do you usually leave the debris that's just in the middle of the stream, even though it's kind of clogging up things? Or is there a method to the madness here
But like
as
I
to
said,
what's done?
it's safety first, and then protection of the resource as well. So sometimes you'll see things that are left, not maybe across the stream, but I think someone was mentioning trees that were left for wildlife
Right,
vegetation.
right, yeah.
So that's a method to the madness, as you say, in that regard. But in other cases where we need to address safety issues or protection of resources, that's sort of the criteria. And then prioritizing our resources to go out and address the issues.
I have one other question, Ms. Morrison. Are you getting enough funding?
Pardon?
Are you getting enough funding to do the work in this park?
We manage with the funding that we have available.
Supports the president's budget submission. So, I just want to say thanks for coming tonight, and I want to express appreciation for Nick Bartolomeo. When there are questions, he's a good federal employee. He's careful not to exceed his authority, but he is responsive to the extent that he can be, and do appreciate that. I have a couple of things related to Fort Circle Parks, but I think they can be taken care of offline. That don't need to take the community. So again, thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Does anyone in the audience have a question?
Is there one hand?
Can you come up? Can you
Yes,
just
I
say
have
your
a
question?
Corey, have you talked to the State Department about whether some agency has authority to achieve the widening of Broad Branch Road, which urgently needs it?
I am not aware of a conversation with the State Department.
Does anyone else in the audience have a question? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming to our meeting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I have some brochures here that I'll leave.
Cool.
And then our magazine on the Civil War efforts.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
Sounds good.
can we
Thank
get
you
them
so
up here?
much.
Thank you.
We'd like to see one.
Next up is petition by residents of 32nd Street Northwest, 4800 block,
Just looking out.
That's me. Hang on.
to install a sidewalk on the west side of the street. Is that? Do
That's very nice.
you want us to skip it?
No.
Sorry.
Okay, no, I just
Mary Beth.
Well, as many of you who walk to the tennis courts or the Forest Hills Playground, any of our schools, the Capitol Memorial Church, or the Metro know, the sidewalk ends before you get to the 4800 block of 32nd Street. And so we're hoping to do something about that. Sally Gresham, Commissioner Gresham, and I have worked together with some of the neighbors, and one of the neighbors from that block is here. Where's Andy? There he is. Andy, hi. Thank you for being here. Andy and Andrew have both been absolutely key in putting together a resolution, in putting together a petition of the neighbors to request this sidewalk. And do you want me to go through the resolution briefly, or do you want Andy to present first?
Let him speak first for a minute,
Okay.
and then you can introduce the resolution.
Okay.
So, good evening, I'm Andrew Salas. I apologize for reading from my notes, but I'm not a very good public speaker, so there it is.
That's fine.
The 4800 block of 32nd Street, which is where I reside at 4802 32nd Street. That block needs to be resurfaced because the roadway is riddled with potholes and uneven asphalt. There are no curbs or gutters, which has eroded the road's edges. Most importantly, there are no sidewalks on either side of the street, a true pedestrian safety issue. people walking to work in the morning, people walking their pets, parents walking children, pushing strollers, walking their kids to the nearby Forest Hills playground, to Merge School. And for myself, walking my dogs every night in the dark, you're forced to walk either on the grass or in the middle of the street, where cars from the nearby apartment buildings park on both sides. So there's not much space for a car and a pedestrian to go by at the same time. So the uneven and eroded street surfaces pose additional challenges, especially for elderly. I've seen elderly people shuffling down the street and having a hard time actually walking through that area. While sidewalks on both sides of the street would optimize walkability and public safety, some residents on the east side of the street were opposed to sidewalks on their side, but supportive of sidewalks on the west side of the street. There are some obstacles on the east side where residents have planted all the way to the street line. Residents on my side of the street, which is the west side, were supportive. There are 4 houses on the west side of the street. Residents of one house were ambivalent more about signing the petition than they were about the sidewalks. So, and then one resident was not home, so I don't know what their view is. But 2 households were agreeable and signed a petition. 2 additional households would be affected, and those houses are at the corner of 32nd and Davenport and 32nd and Ellicott. And those homeowners did sign the petition. So Sally Gresham has been working with the appropriate DDOT agencies and reports that a roadway improvement work order is currently in DDOT's system. So in summary, in the interest of community and public safety for pedestrians and of all ages and physical capabilities, we support a sidewalk on the west side of 32nd Street between Davenport and Ellicott Street. I have collected 66.67% of the affected household signatures on our petition. 1 household abstained, 1 could not be reached, 4 households were in agreement. There was no opposition. The time to do this would seem to be when the road resurfacing curbs and gutters are placed.
Thank you so much, Andy.
And thank Andy Huff, also, who did the lion's share of the work, and you were very supportive also. And he's out of town, so thank you for coming on his behalf.
Great, so it sounds like you have over a majority, which is what's needed. So I guess, Mary Beth, if you have a resolution offer, can you tell us what it is?
Yes, and each of the commissioners has been given a draft resolution, and a copy of the petition is attached to the back of the draft resolution. Whereas the 4800 block of 32nd Street lacks sidewalks on both the east and west sides of the street. In addition to the lack of sidewalks, the block lacks curbs and gutters and is riddled with potholes, creating a hazardous situation for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. Whereas the 4800 block of 32nd Street is a key path to reach the Forest Hills Playground, tennis courts, playing fields, the Capitol Memorial Church, Merch, Steele, and Wilson schools, and the Metro. Many parents with strollers, young children, teens, and the elderly live, work, and play in the vicinity, and a safer passage is needed. Whereas over 50% of the residents whose property will be affected on the west side of the street have signed a petition requesting a sidewalk, and a copy of the resolution, that should be a copy of the petition, is attached herewith.
Correct.
Whereas a DDOT roadway improvement order is currently in DDOT's system, asset management work order 390879 on August 27th, 2013. Whereas the Priority Sidewalk Assurance Act of 2010, approved December 24th, 1973, states sidewalk installation requirements. A, for road segments that lack sidewalk on both sides of the street, road reconstruction or curb and gutter replacement shall include installation of a sidewalk on at least one side of the street. And B, for roadways that are missing sidewalk but are not undergoing major construction, sidewalk installation shall be prioritized for the following areas. 1, missing sidewalks in school areas. 2, routes that provide access to parks and recreational facilities. 4, location where the absence of a sidewalk creates substantial pedestrian safety risks. and 5 roadway segments for which residents petitioned to have sidewalks. And whereas the 4800 block of 32nd Street Northwest meets all the above criteria for the installation of a sidewalk on the west side of the street, now therefore be it resolved that ANC 3F supports the installation of a sidewalk on the west side of 4800 block of 32nd Street. Be it further resolved that ANC 3F supports roadway improvements to this block, including but not limited to the installation of curbs, gutters, and repair potholes. Be it further resolved that Mary Beth Ray and Sally Gresham be authorized to speak at any hearings on the topic of a sidewalk or street repairs relating to the 4800 block of 32nd Street on behalf of ANC 3F.
Thanks. I'll second that. Is there any questions on the resolution or questions about the sidewalk from commissioners? Yes.
I just have a friendly amendment, I think.
Okay.
We're on third whereas, where we say whereas there are over 50% of the residents, I'd like to add something right before that to say whereas there are blank houses on the west side of 32nd Street.
That there what?
Whereas there are how many houses on the west side of 32nd Street, so that DDOT knows you have over 50%.
Yeah, I think you could write, there are four of the 6 residence property owners have signed a sidewalk petition. That might.
Yeah, I mean, that would satisfy it. I just think that.
Could we add a sentence in, whereas 4 of the 6 residence property owners at 66.7% on the even.
That makes it longer.
Okay.
I'm just saying something about whereas there are blank houses, 6 houses or 4 houses, whatever it is.
Can we just say 4 of the 6 affected property
Yes.
owners
Yeah.
have signed the
Yeah.
petition?
Yes,
Something, just so that they know how many houses.
that would be better.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Okay.
And you already changed petition. Do we need to put anything in on, meets all the criteria for the installation of sidewalk on the west side between Davenport and Ellicott Street?
Yes,
Should we put that in?
yes, because DDOT, when I talked to the DDOT,
We'll talk to Mary Beth too, so say it loud enough.
when I talked to the DDOT representatives, they said to state that we meted the criteria of the Sidewalk Act. Which you
It
do.
says-
You say
it
meets
says
all
that.
the above criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying, should it say between the installation of a sidewalk on the west side of the street between Davenport and Ellicott Street, which is what
Yeah.
the gentleman said.
So in that
Just
last
add.
whereas where the period is,
Yeah.
she wants to delete the period and put between Davenport and Ellicott.
Correct, and then say, yeah.
That's it.
I accept that friendly amendment.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a friendly amendment. Could we add at the bottom attachment and then put petition for sidewalk installation with signatures dated 8 December 2013?
Sure.
And then you attach that to the resolution.
I mean, it already cross-references it. but
It
you
already
wanna add-
references it. It's up here. So why are we putting it
Okay,
again?
well, you don't have to do it again, but I've seen resolutions.
No, we
mean,
don't
I
have to
don't-
put it in
Okay,
again.
that's fine.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have questions or comments on this? Is anyone in the audience opposed to this? Anyone in support here? Do any of you wish to?
Does anybody care?
Perfect.
Let us talk about it at the beginning, and now some of us need to leave.
Sorry to hear that. We try our best to move as quick as possible. So, given that no one in the audience has
Did you
anything
move it,
either.
Mary Beth? Did you
Yeah.
move the resolution?
Yes.
Moved and seconded. So
Okay.
let's vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
700. Thanks. Next up is discussion and possible resolution regarding installation of a stop sign at the northwest corner of Fessenden and 36th.
Great, thank you. I have a presentation, but it doesn't really, interest in moving things along, we can do without. Primarily, I've got, so I have 2 resolutions, which I've drafted as separate resolutions for a particular reason, but they both relate to the traffic in the neighborhoods back behind, right here, going from Fessenden, where 36th Connecticut and Fessenden meet, all the way, I think, back to where Broad Branch Terrace meets Linnean, and even further back. Traffic has markedly increased in this period throughout the last several years, and hear this repeatedly from residents in the area. There are lots of reasons for the concerns about safety and high volumes of traffic in the area, but there are a couple patterns in particular that are problematic. And if anybody's spent time looking at the Rock Creek West 2 livability study, this intersection features in it as a particular concern, both the cut from Connecticut coming on to 36th and the approach from the other direction. The bottom line is, because of the commuters are using the area to get to Connecticut Avenue and are using traveling at high speeds, especially on Fessenden, but also 34th coming up from Broad Branch Terrace. And one of the impacts on this is that because there's no stop sign coming from Fessenden to 36th, cars back up on 36th and then use Garrison as a cut, and creates high volume on a very small street and high speeds as well. So ultimately, the goal is to have a more complete traffic calming petition, but I've been going back and forth with DDOT for some time on this. And one of the issues is that, as opposed to the sidewalks that require 50%, traffic calming petitions require 75%, and this ends up being almost 200 households in the area, and frankly, I haven't gotten it all done. So trying to break into pieces and at least make some progress. I understand from hearing from Councilmember Che that she and the police were there today, and I've been in touch with them about some of the things that were being considered. It kind of was, frankly, a little bit of a surprise after the fact, but I was glad to hear from them that there was a discussion, and I believe a couple residents have reached out to her, and I don't know if anybody here was there when she was here this morning. I heard about it after the fact, but I'm glad to see that she's engaged on the issue. I also understand that the purpose of stop signs is not to deal with pedestrian safety, as strange as that may sound. That is the FHA or U.S. Department of Transportation approach to stop signs. So in putting that they are to regulate the flow of traffic, not to keep people safe. I guess if there is safety considerations, it's a secondary consideration. So have actually looked at providing some language about high volumes, and ultimately they're going to assess whether or not the volumes warrant it. Just as a data point, they recently did an assessment on 34th in Broad Branch Terrace and deemed that did not meet the criteria. I don't have all the details. The difficulty, I believe, part of the issue, and we'll get to discussion afterwards, but I think part of the issue is that there is over an 8-hour average that they do the study. So it's we'll get to the so we understand. But of course, this is a serious problem, whether it's volume or safety. So there also can be considerations for visibility. I can say, just coming this evening to get to the meeting, turning left from 36 onto Fessenden, I almost was hit, somebody trying to race through the intersection to make the turn onto Connecticut. And there is obviously concerns about pedestrians in the area as well. I'm the chair of the Merch Safe Routes to School program at Merch, and this has been an area of concern for quite some time. So that said, I will first do the stop sign resolution. Because this is for a stop sign and for traffic regulation, it is not traffic calming. So I don't believe that it requires a traffic calming petition. So I'll offer this. There's language, I think it was available at the front. There was language at the front end about the situation, what the problems that the situation with the lack of the stop sign leads to. Have language in there about what I believe is high volumes that this encourages based on the lack of the stop sign. So therefore be resolved operative paragraph seeks the installation of the stop sign at the corner of Fessenden Street at the northeast part of the intersection where it meets 36th Street. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Thanks. Is there questions or discussion from commissioners? at all.
Manoli, I have a question. Have you gone to the DOTA Assessment Management Group and asked them to do a traffic study? The reason I ask is I did the same thing at Albemarle and 32nd, and it's taken 8 months to get that. And they have guidelines, which I have for you, and they deemed that intersection unwarranted for stop signs, and they're very specific about it. They also don't like to do crosswalks with it. So I'm just asking, have you done this?
No, I've been in touch with them. I've been in touch with, what is it, Greg Stevenson. I mean, I've been in touch with all these people. And to this point, it's really gotten nowhere being in touch with them. So I'm now looking to at least make this as a statement of the position of the ANC. I don't know if it's tilting at windmills. It's been quite frustrating, but this is, I think, a first step. The next step is then a traffic calming petition for the entirety of the area. And then, so I say I'm glad to see Councilmember Che and the police at the intersection today. I'll be speaking to them further tomorrow, and we continue to pursue it. If they want to turn down a stop sign because they are not, if they want to be not on the side of safety, that's their decision. But that becomes a point at which we begin a more, I don't know, a stronger set of.
I don't want to be negative, but they have said to me in the 32nd Davenport, which Mary Beth and I have been working on. 32nd and Albemarle, is that you have to have so many cars going through the intersection.
I understand all the criteria.
Yeah.
But visibility is also one of them.
So maybe
and visibility is also, and maybe that's the solution. I need to put some more language about visibility here. Okay. But the Rock Creek 2 livability study also recommends removing a couple of the parking spaces because of the difficulty of making the right turn when you come off of Connecticut onto 36th. And that hasn't happened. That's not been. It actually advocates for the right turn. When you're turning right, when you come off of Connecticut onto 36th and turn right onto Fessenden, that it's hard to see because of cars parked at the. But it also suggests, if I'm not mistaken, closing off that entire turn, which, generally speaking, what I've heard from people, they're not in favor of, but it is something to be considered.
So are you proposing one stop sign on one stop sign? You're proposing one stop sign at Fessenden at 36.
Yes.
In the north something corner.
And maybe I do need the map. I can bring up the map.
Do you have a map?
Yeah.
But please carry on while I do this.
So.
Manoli, I just had a question because I've had good luck, or our ANC has in the past, of not requesting traffic calming studies, but requesting a traffic study in general to look at this whole area, including Garrison Street, Ellicott Street, and doing a resolution just asking for the traffic study and then sending it to Mary. I mean, I think that's the route I think we should be taking, because I think this whole area needs to be looked at as a whole, not just piecemeal.
Well, we have many places that need the traffic.
No, I'm not saying no, but right now this is the one before us.
So it's right there.
Northeast corner.
So that's that little angle, right? If you're going north on Connecticut, it's that little angle.
No, the
if
concern.
You're coming up Fessenden, it's right before you get to 36.
So the concern is, okay, so this is what happens. People fly up 34th and then turn right, or they come up Linnean and come up Fessenden. Because there's a stop sign here at 34th and Fessenden, but there's not one here at Fessenden at 36th. And then this is what they're trying to do, is make the turn onto Connecticut. So, and then what happens is because there's no stop sign here and the traffic is flowing quickly, except when there's a red light, then it backs up, oftentimes in the box. cars who come up 36 back up along 36th, and then that's the next resolution. What they do is then turn left onto Garrison, turn right onto 34th, and then right onto Fessenden.
And none of them stop.
At high speeds. And I think there's some psychology there, because if you're going to make that worth your while, you got to beat the car that was in front of you on 36th. So you'll make that turn and come all the way around. That's the next resolution. Right now, the stop sign is, I think, frankly, I think that's the root cause. That's the patient zero.
Yeah, if you're on 36th, you wait forever to get on Connecticut Avenue. And there are no houses on 36th Street at all. It is a better artery.
So that's.
I'd like to add something. They also
Are we-
speed down speed down the alley between Garrison and Fessenden.
Yes, they do.
And I think I do need to add something about the alley.
That's really.
Fine, but that I think is on the second one as well.
Okay.
Well, I think,
So I think,
I had a question, and I don't think it ever got answered about.
Do it next month. That's fine.
No,
He didn't,
She said suggested a traffic study for the entire area. I'll do it next month.
but I mean, why next month if we're putting these in now? Why not do a resolution
Okay.
now to do a traffic study of this whole area to include these things?
Okay, I'll do when we get through this one, I'll do a third resolution and do
I
that.
guess what I'm saying is, in place of these,
No, this is the resolution that's before us right now.
Okay.
You can oppose if you choose, and I understand the need for the study, which is what I said at the outset, that
Let 'em do it.
a
third.
a larger study, yes,
Yeah.
fine. And we're working, and frankly, they're going to come back and say, not as a general traffic study. It is a traffic calming study. So to get that going, I mean, you can package however you want. If you can get it done without the petition, fabulous. I'd be all for that. But I've gone around in circles with DDOT and others on this.
well, I think when
Well, actually, let me finish. So at the moment, I want to break it into pieces, do this while still pursuing the larger traffic calming petition.
When you think about it, the whole reason for cutting through our streets is to avoid the stop sign at the top of 36th Street. So, if there were two stop signs, they would have to go 1 and 1 to get to Connecticut Avenue, just to take turns. Right now, it's just Indianapolis Speedway, coming up 36th, around Garrison and Fessenden, 34th, and up, so they don't have to stop.
And I have a real
Right.
concern that they don't understand the problem. I'm really worried because people literally catch air at 34th and Broad Branch. It's at the top of a hill. And I asked for some help there, and they put a sign that said, cross street does not stop.
Right.
Does that encourage people to drive slower?
so I mean, basically, they will reject every stop sign request for safety. It's not, they don't care about that.
For speed?
Or speed, it doesn't
What do
matter.
they care?
So they care about right of way. That's what a stop sign does under federal rules. Right of way. When
It
you get
establishes
into
right
an
of way.
intersection,
That's correct.
who gets to go?
Yep.
So since there's no stop sign there because I guess Fessenden's the fast way, there's no question of who has the right of way there. So we gotta kind of make this resolution, which he did,
Trying to put some more language
say
that's going to
something
meet
about
federal
why
standards.
we need this.
If
So
there's no stop sign, they have the right of way
correct.
on
But
Fessenden.
Which then meets the objectives of.
and
it's
DDOT
kinda-
does not like stop signs.
counterintuitive. We've just yeah.
Which is
DDOT
why I'm going to do this. Even if it's
I hear you.
not going to work, I'm still going to pursue it.
I agree. I mean, I think, starting with small increments, and building up, that all works.
Impossible. You
So I
can't
guess-
get out of your driveway,
I
I
hear
mean,
you. I
it
hear
is
you.
just one area.
There are a lot of children on the
So-
block,
so-
and there are children trying to get.
Well,
can
once
people
again,
talk
so
one at a
I'm going
time?
to cut everyone in the audience off till the commissioners are done speaking. I understand the children. I understand the speed. That's not what the stop sign will be created for, unfortunately. I hear you. That's what maybe this third resolution might address somehow. But, so the resolution, do you have comments on it, Mary Beth?
Oh, I just have a question.
Yeah.
So is the stop sign, is it a two-way stop?
So there's no stop, and it wouldn't be looking for one necessarily going from going eastbound.
east.
Okay.
That's less of the issue. The real issue is the westbound coming from, and I think the eastbound may be problematic because of the small size of the roadway between 36th and Connecticut. I don't think would be feasible.
So it's just one stop sign, and it's for the
Traffic.
westbound traffic on Fessenden at 36.
Yes, it's where he's got the
Got it.
Big red
red
hexagon.
stop.
Does any other commissioner have questions about this?
Was it seconded?
It was. Does anyone in the audience oppose the stop sign? Okay, those who are supportive of the stop sign, if you wish to speak for a few seconds on why you support it, feel free. Come up to our microphone, introduce yourself. I think generally, I don't know, feel free to speak about it if you wish.
I mean, does it matter? We all support it, that's why we're here.
You don't need any
Well,
redundant.
I like to let everyone talk if they wish, so feel free. Otherwise, we
That's
can
why
vote
our
on
meetings
it.
are so long.
I know.
Didn't want Democratic talking.
Well, if we have to talk just in terms of traffic flow rather than safety.
You can talk to us about anything. You can talk to us about anything.
I think we're
But
going to have to
TDOT is
solve-
only going to look at stop signs in terms of right of way.
Sure, and then we're going to have to address the larger issue with the city council. And Mary Chey and others can help us on that. And it takes numbers to get people out to, with you and with Mary Chey, to make the evident statement before someone gets really hurt, and it's, then the horse is out of the barn, about the safety of people crossing Fessenden and onto Connecticut, and all through 34th Street, because you are aware of the flow. So basically, I'm Mike Schneider from 3309 Fessenden Street. We support the stop sign on the west side of Fessenden before the intersection with Connecticut Avenue. And we will support the second resolution, which is related to it, to stop the flow of traffic during rush hour from 36th left on Garrison, right on 34th, and so on. To make the flow of traffic be simpler and clearer, to have the alternative of each car getting its turn onto Connecticut Avenue. Secondarily, and maybe you can put it in the resolution, but maybe it doesn't fit because it's a safety concern, there is a need to paint boldly the pedestrians right-of-way at that same intersection, crossing from Fessenden toward Connecticut, going west, and to put up the same stop sign that exists at 34th and Broad Branch Place right now, about the $200 fine for being in the intersection. Thanks.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Come on up.
I'm Pat Rosenman. I live on Garrison Street. I have lived there for over 40 years, and the situation has become absolutely untenable. The cars come up 36th Street, do not, simply to avoid the stop sign, never mind whether there's a backup or not, will turn left on Garrison, right on 34th, right on Fessenden, so that they can cruise through if they get a green light to get to Connecticut. What they're trying to do, coming up 36, is to get to Connecticut, and as you said, it's simpler to just come up 36th, make the right turn, get onto Connecticut, and go your way, particularly during rush hour. In the morning, whenever I go out to get my paper, or if I need to leave the house early, getting out of the street is very, very dangerous.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Does it actually matter? Does it go on?
No. Yeah, you're on the live stream. Feel free.
I also live on Garrison Street. I'm the lucky slob that lives right at the corner of 34th and Garrison Street all morning from 7 to 9:15 or so. I have constant traffic, failing to stop at the stop sign at Garrison and 34th. 0% compliance with that stop sign, even when Officer Franchak is there, because he stations himself further up on 34th Street. Secondarily, the speeds on 34th Street are out of control. I allowed the officer to use my driveway to park his car so he could pull more people over. He pulls them over in droves. If DC will not do a study between 7 and 9:30, nothing will happen. This neighborhood will lose its charm over time. This is a charming area. I'd really like to see it so. I've also lived here 25 years. So.
What's your
Never
name?
seen it like this. Hetty Carr.
Great.
Again, Sean Teep. I live on Nebraska, but I off of Park on Nevada, and I take 36 pretty much every single morning. Everything that folks here have said is true. I think the stop sign there is really as being proposed tonight is necessary. It allows people to take their turn in order to get onto Connecticut. That's really the biggest I think problem is that intersection there, the lack of a stop sign. And if there's anything that if this resolution doesn't get movement from the government, I'm happy to join an effort to try and move it along.
Great, nice. So I think at this point, let's vote on this first resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0-0. So Enola, your next one, discussion and possible resolution regarding installation of a no left turn sign from 36.
So the no left turn is just as discussed. I think it's there. So it would be there. So right there, that's the turn onto Garrison. And this is, as just said, this is a product of the patterns that are created by the lack of the stop sign and the flow from Fessenden through to Connecticut. Ideally, with the stop sign, this becomes less of an issue, but I don't think it goes away as an issue. And in the absence of the stop sign, it's important. That's one of the reasons why I'm separating them. Was that I think they need to sort of move concurrently in the event that there's an issue with one or the other. This is a traffic calming issue, and DDOT does define it as such. I've been in touch with them today, in fact, and they were wanting the petition of all the impacted residents of the street that the sign would be located on. There's no residents of 36th Street on this block. So we were going back and forth on whether or not residents of Garrison are impacted by this, and they haven't come back with a clear definition. I am arguing that that the impacted residents on the street that the sign would actually be on. It would be 36th Street, which then would negate the need for a traffic calming study, and they can make the decision to move forward more quickly. Whether or not that works is maybe another story, but that's what we're doing that's why I want to move forward with this, is not requiring a traffic calming study. So it's basically the same preamble as the previous one about the concerns, but then goes into the specifics of the left turn and the issues, especially between 7 and 9:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. It's since been brought to my attention in conversations this weekend with residents, and you heard it tonight as well, that I will look to add something about the alley as well, because the alley is cut through, and whether that's a do not enter.
Where is the alley?
Sometimes making a one-way
The alley's in the middle of the block. It's between the two lines of houses.
Oh, between 36 and
Yeah.
34th.
Correct. No.
No,
Between
Fessenden and Garrison.
It's right there.
Yeah.
The alley is right here.
Yeah.
And this is used the same way. So maybe the same thing with no left onto the alley between those houses.
Yeah.
Right, I meant connecting.
Then the only issue with that does then impact Garrison Street residents. So
Manoli, what about a one-way alley?
I'm not prepared. That was something I would need to hear more.
Does the alley connect 36 to 34?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. It's parallel to Garrison Street. People do park there, so one way would be burdensome for the neighbors who may wish to leave their driveway and go either way. I would rather just have your commuter traffic out.
You can't just say no commuter
No, I know
traffic.
that, but I'm saying, I do see the one-way.
So we need to think of a more creative approach to that.
One thing that DDOT, You know, DDOT does have a traffic calming manual, and one of the things they suggested in some of the alleys at one point in the Connecticut Avenue traffic study that was before this Rock Creek one was speed bumps in alleys.
So-
It deters cars, residents hate them, but it also
Yes.
deters cars.
So,
But it
yeah.
also messes up your car.
Well, though they have lower ones now, they have different kinds.
So there's all sorts
They have
of
flat
things you
top
could
ones.
do with speed bumps, with sidewalks, with
Table.
cutting up. And this is where the traffic calming study comes into play, but ultimately, I think that's unfortunately a longer term issue.
Have we
So in
talked
the
about
meantime, I
route-
want to move forward with this resolution.
Can you explain what you've got up there, what you're trying to say with the
So
comment?
this is where, there's options for, the traffic calming manual does raise, raised intersections, speed bumps.
Roundabouts.
There's all sorts of things, there's no stop sign at the corner of 34th and Garrison, which is one of the problems with people turning right from Garrison onto 34th. Those who are making that cut are taking quite a dangerous action because, as you heard, people are getting air coming up 34th over Broad Branch Terrace. So they're coming very quick that way. People are then trying to make this right to get around. They're moving at high speeds to get around this problem of the lack of. Anyways, you get the point. It's all a problem. Ultimately, I do think the root cause is the stop sign. But, and I do think it warrants the broader study. And to that end, I actually have, if you haven't ever signed a petition, I have actually by block the petitions out here, but I know a number of you here already have. So if I've gotten yours, then I've got it. I'm still working on others, in particular Broad Branch Terrace and further down on 34th.
Okay, so
They're out there in the hallway.
you've made a motion to.
The motion to adopt this second resolution on the left turns.
Did you say you were going to amend that resolution for the alley?
You know what? I don't think so. I don't think so on this, because I think that it may end up complicating this, because right now I'm making this perhaps tenuous argument, but argument all the same, that it doesn't require a petition because the impacted residents are 36th Street. I'm all for taking up something on the alley, but I would like to hear from people maybe at another time about what some solutions may be, and we've talked about a few right now about whether it's speed bumps or some sort of other measure, but I don't think that is going to fit on here because of the connection with 36th Street.
So, do most of the cars come off of Nebraska? Or where are they coming from? Are they coming from?
They're coming from Maryland.
Well, we know they're coming from
Doesn't-
Maryland, but they have to be kind of.
Or coming across Military and coming down.
Down.
Yeah, maybe they're coming from Ward 4.
Okay,
I don't know.
all right.
But they're coming, wherever they're coming from, they're entering the neighborhood at Linnean.
Okay.
And then coming up Broad Branch Terrace.
Okay.
Or 34th. Broad Branch Terrace, and then it splits onto 34th.
So are those people?
Or they're going Linnean all the way to Fessenden and coming up Fessenden.
Okay.
They're coming either of those directions, or they're coming off of Nevada onto Linnean, onto 36, then coming up 36. So
Right.
wherever they're coming from, they're coming quickly.
So do the other people further in on Fessenden, the next blocks, the 32nd? Yeah. Everybody is complaining about
Yes.
this?
Yes.
Everybody in this further out also?
Yeah.
Broad
There's a lot of
Branch?
steam up Fessenden off of Lane. They come around that wide open space, and they're really moving up
Mhm.
Fessenden. They even don't stop at the stop sign at 34th and Fessenden, and they continue right up and right through the regular light. They can see the light from such a distance.
Mhm.
They really pick up speed going to the intersection from 34th to 36 to make that left turn onto Connecticut, or go across toward Wisconsin.
And this is only morning. This doesn't happen in the afternoon.
I don't know where they go.
No, nobody's going home that way.
Yeah.
Because they can come straight down. They can come off Connecticut and go straight down and out to Maryland.
Well-
Because most of them are Maryland plates.
But now that the Conway Bridge is open, you can watch, expect the evening traffic.
It's just right now, not bad, it's
Oh.
probably not bad.
That's interesting.
Like,
This morning.
I think in the evening also, people leave their offices at different times. So some people stay downtown and have dinner or have cocktails.
Well, you got school also.
Yeah, so I think the mornings are very different.
Okay, so I'll second.
Would you consider putting something in here that acknowledges the issue of the alley if we're going to
I don't think you should.
not solves the question, but we got an email today from another resident who also raised that concern that putting the no left
Yeah, he
turn
did.
sign at Garrison simply shifts the problem down to the alley.
Correct.
So maybe we say we put the sign at Garrison and we recognize that there is a further problem that needs to be addressed.
It doesn't have to be the resolution. That I'm fine. Sure.
It doesn't have to be the resolution, because resolution is going to be done. I mean, it's part of an overall.
Okay.
That's fine. It's just a suggestion.
Okay.
But
You go with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Is
Okay.
it legal to use an alley as if it were a street in
No.
Washington?
It's done all the time, though.
Maybe
It's technically an alley is not considered a street, because we have the same problem at Van Ness, between VZ Terrace and Van Ness Street, east of Connecticut.
so we'll raise it with Officer Franchek and
Yeah, he's
as well.
been very, I mean, MPD has been the most responsive so far.
Yeah, so that's going to be your, when the sign goes up, it's really important to stay on MPD. So we have the no left on Reno and Upton. They still average 500 cars an hour.
Oh, wow.
So making it, so you need to make sure MPD enforces this often, so people get the message.
I think this is an interesting thing. I have a suggestion. It says in this study for stop signs that if you have more than 5 crashes within a 12-month period, then this is where you can get a stop sign. So maybe demolition derby should come in play.
You know what, we'll not,
Okay.
you know, Sally,
So
I have an idea. Let's use your car to do it.
Okay, so does any commissioners have any questions about the motion that's been modified by Malik? Anyone? Okay, is anyone in the audience opposed to the left-hand turn signal?
Sign.
You're opposed to it?
A couple of people in the back.
I'm actually not opposed to it, but I don't know that I support it either. It's the same
Excuse me,
position that
this
I
is
have.
former Commissioner Doug Mitchell.
I'm sorry, I'm Doug Mitchell. I live right across the street in the middle of Fessenden Street. And I served on the commission with both Karen and Sally.
And Sally.
When we were all very
Hi. We still are.
Because, and I also, I've been in contact with all of you. I sent the email a couple of days ago. And because the police have not been enforcing the do not enter sign to CVS parking lot, and I was nearly hit by a car that was speeding up that hill and probably took air, and then turned right on Connecticut Avenue and turned left into the Exxon station and got on Nebraska Avenue, avoiding all the stuff.
That's what they do. I was going to say.
My concern is that whether you have a sign or not, the people are not going to abide by it, and you need enforcement. Whatever you're going to do, you need enforcement. And I really would ask that you not spin your wheels doing things that aren't going to work, as you said.
But you served on the ANC.
Yeah, but I think I was effective.
Yeah, okay. Then I would invite you to run again in the fall.
I'm not interested.
I'm actually inviting you.
That's why he's not going to do it again.
One of these, and it's like, I'm not coming back.
I'm starting the campaign, Doug Mitchell.
We feel the same way. That there used to be no parking signs on that little strip of 36th Street between Connecticut and Fessenden, and they disappeared when they redid the curbs.
Correct.
That would be helpful to the sight lines again, because I have seen cars parking there. I just want to say that if they're going to do signs, you got to have some enforcement mechanism. That's
agreed.
And I think that's Ken Katz, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he wrote too.
I think they should. Wait a minute.
The assumption that nobody will pay attention to the sign. Some people will and some people won't. But as a traffic calming measure, it might, if it's 50%, it would be 50% better.
Hi, I am Ken Katz. I'm actually Doug's neighbor. And I definitely do not feel that this proposal is worth voting for. If everything you said is true about Garrison, which I actually do agree about, it absolutely is true of the alley. And sadly or not, I see many school kids using the alley. I use the alley when I leave in the morning and when I come home, and I often see in the morning cars that I must avoid. I have never seen enforcement of using the alley. And at this point, if again everything you said is true, then it must be true that what will happen is the traffic will increase with those high speeds in the alley. So I don't think you can separate it out. I would be really happy if you included that in it, or perhaps in a likewise manner had a third proposal and put them all, sort of sent them all out to gather success at the same time. But I really feel that this proposal by itself is merely shifting traffic from one place to another. And that is even worse than possibly not being successful. So that's my feeling about that particular proposal.
Just want to say, the only suggestion MPD had for me that they were comfortable and happy with enforcing, and they were looking for things to enforce, Officer Franchak in particular, who has been very helpful, was that no turn sign on Garrison Street. Easy for him to see people doing it. He doesn't he can still wait on 34th Street and see them coming, so he can catch people on 34th and violating that at the same time and be in one place, because he is only one man. And since I started spam calling MPD, I've noticed them around quite a lot. So, you know, I'm willing to continue to call them every day if necessary so that I can enjoy a pleasant time walking my dog in the morning and kids can be safe. I don't care. I'll call them every day so that he's there 3-4 days a week. And that was his one specific suggestion. He is supportive of the stop sign, but less understanding of it, because I guess he can't see it when he's parked where he is, which is in fact right near that alley that we're talking about. He parks right where my driveway is. I work from home, and I invited him to park there, so he can see people coming out of that alley. He can see the alley, he can see 34th, and he could see people illegally turning on Garrison Street and coming out from that location. So I would be comfortable with it, and I would be happy calling all the time.
And the virtue of the stop sign in the alley is that it can be enforced.
True. Anyone else?
There's nothing that stops that enforcement now. It's truly illegal. And if he's sitting where he's sitting, there's been nothing to stop him from enforcing it.
I don't see how he sees that left, no left, if he's in your driveway. And he can't sit there 4 days a week or 3 days. He's
Okay,
got other
so at
places
this
to
point,
go.
I guess let's vote on this motion, unless we get to vote.
Yeah, I don't think that what I'm trying to do, effective or otherwise, trying to work this without the issue with nobody living on 36th. I'm happy to do something separate on the alley even tonight, the same language but no left onto the alley as a separate piece. I do think that'll get kicked back as a traffic calming measure impacting residents on both Fessenden and Fessenden and Garrison. But ultimately need to get those signatures anyway, so if anybody wants to join me this weekend and get signatures, I'd be happy to take the help.
Okay, so
Sorry, wait, is the alley in or out?
So the alley is going to be a third resolution in a moment.
And then we're doing a fourth resolution
Sure.
with the traffic
So
study?
hold on. So let's vote on this. All in favor of this resolution, no left turn on Garrison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And that's without the amendment.
7.
No, it isn't 7. I didn't vote for it.
Oh, you vote?
I'm
Fine, all
abstaining on that one.
opposed?
I'm abstaining on that one.
Abstain. 6-0-1. Karen abstaining. Okay, so
now I've got a motion
So you need
for-
to make a motion and
Sure.
modify the agenda to add these two items.
Okay. So what do I need to do first?
Tell me what you want to add.
I want to have, so motion will be for a resolution that'll be in support of a no left turn into the alley between Garrison and Fessenden from 36th.
Okay.
with the same language.
Same language.
Okay, so.
You said
Is that
a
just in
motion
the
to
morning?
modify the agenda.
Yeah, he's
That's
got
the
7
agenda.
and
On the
9:30.
agenda.
No, I'm asking on the alley.
So, motion to modify the agenda.
Okay, and then do you have a second one too? Throw
What do we have to vote on that motion?
Put them both
Need
at
it?
the same time if you want.
I think you need
Without
to do
objection.
it's a question.
Fine.
Okay, without
Does anyone
objection.
object to adding that?
No.
No.
Okay, call for the question. And then now I'll
So make.
And-
so
make a
Traffic
motion
study.
for the, motion to actually adopt the resolution.
Wait a minute, I'm getting confused.
The motion was to amend the agenda. That was just
Okay, to
support,
put in
approved.
no left turn stop sign at the alley. Is that between
Off
certain?
of 36th onto the alley between Garrison and Fessenden.
Now, is that only during certain hours or all
It
day?
would be, yes, be between 7 and 9:30, Monday through Friday.
Okay, because that needs to be in there.
So it'd be the same as what's
Okay,
in there
he's
now.
got that in here.
Okay, is there a second for this motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, Malachi seconds it. So is there discussion from commissioners about
Will that
this? So I
affect any
guess
of the,
my,
I just have a question. Will that affect any of the homeowners?
yeah, that's my question. Have you talked to these? I assume you have not.
It really was over the weekend where this was raised because it's been focused mostly on Garrison. Well, we've heard from residents tonight, but other than that, no. That's not true. We spoke about it this past weekend. But other than that, same thing that you heard just now. And there was one other resident on Fessenden who I spoke to on whatever day that was, Sunday. Also mentioned this, and it was not something that I had been focused on previously. I've been primarily looking at Garrison.
I have a question. Is there a prohibition that would say no through traffic? Instead of saying no left turn, you would still allow the residents to go in and
There
out.
are signs that say that.
I wouldn't put that sign because then you're encouraging, noting someone, telling them that there is a way to get through.
I asked MPD about this for what it's worth, and I don't mean to interrupt you. He said it's totally unenforceable and not going to.
Okay.
I wouldn't even, you're just telling people, drive through my alley.
You know, the only time a no-through traffic works is if it's a dead-end street.
Or no outlet.
Does any other commissioners have any comments on this?
Well, I have a question to Doug and Ken. I mean, you both are on Fessenden, which you have the alley. So what is, and you do too, right? So what is your feeling? I can understand Garrison, but you're on Fessenden, which is a little different. So what is your feeling if you can't go out the alley, you can't come in the alley in the morning to your house from 36th Street?
Not a problem.
Okay, I'm just,
We can still come in from 34th.
That
Yeah.
would be the drive of shame. Yeah.
okay. I'm just,
I think
People
my
are
concern,
very
I think my
anti-one-way
concern
streets.
is, I think my concern is that a lot of the residents have not been talked to that are affected.
how many houses?
Looks like there's 10,
12 houses?
12 houses. How many people are
Three,
here?
four,
we delay
five,
this till
6,
next
7,
meeting?
8, 9, 10, 11,
There will be
12.
16 houses on the alley, or 10 on Fessenden Street and 6 on Garrison.
And how many of you are here that live
On that alley.
on that alley?
Well, actually, more of them were here.
Earlier,
At least 2 people have gone.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people are here?
Should we table that one until next month's meeting? So that more
Well-
residents can be alerted to it, and we
I
can
don't-
post
I
it
mean-
on our website and then put it on the agenda?
The thing about that alley,
Yeah,
I think people brought it up because people really were concerned.
I'm not saying no, but it's nice to be able to notify the residents before we take action. And we do that through, our listserv, and that was not put on tonight.
So Manolo, you the view that
So,
most
I mean,
people
the
support
efforts
this,
to
or-
raise awareness about the meeting tonight was that I dropped off a notification of the resolutions related to Garrison and Fessenden and a little, cover letter to all the houses on the blocks that were affected by those two. But it's true, there was nothing on, this is a audible. I'm agnostic. If this is something that there's concerns that people feel strongly about,
Bring it up next month.
fine.
Can you send all?
Provided
all, wait a minute,
that
can
Karen, you
send
come
all
and canvass
four?
the houses with me to knock on doors to find out.
I've done it before.
Okay, I'll see you next weekend.
I just think they need to be notified.
So I guess
We've done it before by just putting signs on the street.
The motion's live, so I guess at this point.
I move to
let's-
table it until next month.
It's not like DDOT's going to put up a sign.
I know, it's yet another, fine, okay, I'll withdraw the motion. Hopefully nobody gets hit on the alley in the meantime.
Well, then you can do
There's not gonna be a
exactly
sign
that.
up
That'd be
on
5
Karen's
accidents.
That's it, the 5 accidents, that's
Okay.
it.
Manoli, do you have anything else?
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
The traffic stuff.
I
The
don't,
traffic
no,
stuff.
let's,
Do that
let's,
in another
let's notify the residents.
Yeah, let's-
I'm not gonna do
Okay.
anything.
Notification.
All right, so next item on the agenda is update on grant applications.
Which motion was withdrawn?
The alley.
Left turn on the alley.
So I think.
And the traffic study.
And he withdrew the traffic study.
Yes.
Well, there was
so we
no
can
motion.
Chat about those.
No, I thought you said.
Presumably. Okay. Next item, updates on grant applications from Friends of Forest Hills Playground and Hearst PTA. So I'll start with Hearst PTA. Last meeting we supported a grant for Hearst so long as they hired a music teacher and gave us a list of stuff they want to buy. Dr. Bergeron hired a music teacher, so that has been satisfied, and they gave me a list of stuff to buy. A recorder, a bunch of recorders, a bunch of drums, bongo drums, sheet music, and a cabinet to store all the stuff so it doesn't get stolen. In light of this, it seems to me that they've fulfilled the requirements, so to make it official, I'll make a motion to approve Hearst's grant for $4,000 to buy the music cabinet.
How much is the grant for? How much have they, is all that totaled?
I don't know, I can add it up.
The grant was 4,000.
Yeah, but we don't know what he's asking
She's
for.
asking how much
Right,
does
no,
all
I
that stuff
understand.
cost?
Since we didn't see it ahead of time to total it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
This totals $37,6620, but I don't know if there's sales tax or shipping, so I'm still inclined to approve 4,000. And if it's below, it's below. So the motion.
Well, let's make it not to exceed.
No, it's just $4,000.
Okay.
That's it.
But, Bob, let me ask you a question. Can we do that legally, make it $4,000, and they only asked us for $3,700 and whatever?
Could you all ask
Well,
them to go?
if there's
out to-
tax or any kind of shipping, then it would get up to that level.
But we don't know that from what they
Well,
gave us just now.
They would have to provide receipts for whatever they got money for, and
Do you mind
anything they
taking
didn't
your
have receipts
conversation-
for.
Hey.
Excuse me, everybody.
In the back, former commissioner, do you mind speaking in the hallway?
Sorry.
Thanks.
For anything they don't have a receipt for, they have to give us the money back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, they have to provide receipts for whatever they spend.
Yeah, can I just comment, I think the whole discussion the last time, the point was for musical instruments. I would have been satisfied with musical instruments, because ultimately they have to provide the receipts to the auditor. It's the receipts that matter, and provided that they do that, then they are in compliance. If it was 12 xylophones, or 13, or 7 cymbals, and a trumpet, I don't care. It was musical
We're not even looking at
instruments.
the list, so.
So, I think there was,
I
think there was, I think also we did a conditional approval of the grant, which actually violates the guidelines. If there was an issue about them buying instruments, then we should have dealt with the issue about buying instruments. This idea that they had to come back to us with specifics, I think was, frankly, a disservice to the community. It was pointless. So I've said my piece.
I agree with part of what you said, but part of the reason that
it was conditional was because he hadn't heard the music teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
And he
And
didn't
I
know
think,
what he was
I mean,
going to
that was
donate.
the reason that I went along with it.
Yeah,
frankly,
I mean,
because I
he-
agree with you. Asking for a list of which instruments is absurd.
No, but he didn't have the teacher
But-
to even know what the
right.
teacher wanted.
Yeah, so I
It
think
was
that
up-
was, that was a discussion, was basically, there wouldn't be a teacher if we didn't give them some comfort that this money might actually
Right.
appear, versus us saying, yeah, it might appear, and then they coming back and getting voted down. That was the point.
And he really didn't know what he.
So that's why I'm proposing the motion to just formally approve it.
Great.
I second the motion.
Call for
It's
the
all
question.
clean as kosher as can be. So,
I second.
thank you. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
7-0-0. Okay. So the next grant application, Friends of Forest Hills Playground. So the last meeting, I can't remember exactly, but effectively we had to ask the auditor to find out if, or the Attorney General, if we could spend money to pay for a logo and website.
And logo, and a website design,
So,
redesign.
so based on communication today from the auditor's office, we cannot use our money to pay for this. So in light of that, we are unable to approve the grant, which is unfortunate.
So
Well, actually, that came
if
in
there's some
yesterday, but-
discussion, I mean, I think this
I
is
Yeah,
like
okay.
extreme foolishness. And really doing, I think, again, we did a disservice to the community. And I think the answer that the auditor provided was frankly kind of stupid. And the relevancy of the item that was put forward by the Office of the ANCs, I think is questionable. The interpretation based on the application and not having being privy to the discussion is problematic. I mean, there's so many issues, and as we have heard and was said repeatedly, and I thought we were going to get earlier, it's the opinion of the Attorney General that matters, not the auditor, and especially not Gottlieb Simon, who I think, again, has done a disservice to us, done a disservice to the community, and frankly, just messed this up. The idea that a redesign on a website, okay, so this is a good example. You know, my 7-year-old saw through the flawed logic of the district, that a new website would be okay as a discrete project, but a redesign on an antiquated website would not. You know, in discussing this with, like reading the email and coming to terms with it, my 7-year-old said, well, why don't they just shut down the site they don't like and start up a new one?
That's
So
what my
he
husband
understood
said.
the logic. And this is somebody who said, this is a kid who said, you know, I was, you know, got the award for the best team player. That means I'm the best player on the team. So he's, you know, his relationship with logic is still developing, and he understood the flaws in the district's reasoning. So I don't think this is over. And I know there was a thought that because I had served on the board, I'm full, you know, full disclosure, I'm a former board member. And my wife is a former board member, but that doesn't have.
There's no financial interest.
There's no
involved,
financial
so it's
interest.
not a conflict of interest.
And she actually resigned when I became an ANC commissioner to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. I just think this is like extreme stupidity, and really is a disappointment for me personally, to see this is a new low to see the district acting in this way. So I think what the steps we need to take now is to actually get a real opinion from the Attorney General, not a, you know, looks good, 6 hours later, oh, Gottlieb called me, sorry, doesn't look good, from the auditor. That is not an appropriate response, and I think, frankly, they should be ashamed. It may turn out that it's not eligible. If that's the case, and especially the criteria that's in the Attorney General's letter, if that is that was cited from October 2013, if that is the criteria that's used across the city, I don't know how. I think we should consider finding ways to begin to refuse our allotment.
Forget it.
Because,
You're gonna pay for staff.
or alternatively, find a way to give it to a council member's constituent service fund, because, you know, apparently there's no restrictions on what they can do with the money. They can't help out their website, maybe they can at least buy them Capitals tickets.
Yeah, let's
You
give
know-
it to Ward 8 ANC that
If I
spins
could-
without asking
So,
Gottlieb what to do.
so there's no vote or anything that needs to be taken tonight, but I do think that we need to, that the city at least owes the organization a proper legal review, not this sort of half-baked email from
If
the
I may, and
auditor.
I reread Gottlieb's thing a few times to really get it, and add the Attorney General's letter, because I think it's confusing, and it had the footnotes.
Yes, it's
And-
very confusing.
And we really didn't see some of the original grant applications that they were responding to. We never saw that, and I'm not sure what.
Not in the letter.
Not in that letter.
Correct.
So I don't know what they were responding to, nor did we see it. But one of the things I gained out of it was not that you could start a new website. It was, and I think Gottlieb explained this to Sally, it's what is the public benefit?
Again, that is
No, it's
just
in the letter here.
idiotic.
He says, in brief, the project should be one that provides a benefit to the public who work and live in the 3F area.
That's not in his thing.
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is.
The idea that that a website, I don't.
So-
It's so dumb in so many ways. It's hard to even know where to begin.
Right,
Well,
and especially
okay,
with
then let me
technology
chime
today.
in, because I completely agree with everything that Manoli just said. And I am horrified that somebody in the city would say no to this, especially using this ridiculous logic. And I think the idea of the Forest Hills Playground wanting to improve their website is a wonderful service to the community, because I think about elderly people who maybe can't get out and walk down to the playground, but they can get on the website and see the wonderful things that are going on down the street from them. I think about the parents with kids who want to find out, what day is the construction going to happen at the Forest Hills Playground? When is that Little League, going to be rescheduled since it snowed in May? And so I think that is absolutely ridiculous. And I think improving websites is a wonderful way to improve public access to whatever these groups are, whether it's the ANC or the playground or, the Park Service.
I agree
So-
with you,
so
Mary
here's-
Beth. I would like to say something on this. Since I've been in contact with Manoli, and I feel like he did a disservice to our ANC because of the 3 phone calls I had with Gottlieb, sorry, not you. Sorry, Gottlieb. He basically thought this grant, when we first talked about it, sounded reasonable, and it would benefit the neighborhood. And how he turned totally after reading. I think the whole problem comes from the wordage in the proposal about how the board members need a better website. That's what he keeps coming back to. It's an internal benefit versus an external benefit. And that's something that I received an email very late from Ally Chalupa, who's the president and wrote the letter, or did the proposal with Virginia, is that she wrote a very long email to me. I got it at 7 o'clock. That really needs to go to Gottlieb, and it needs to go to the Attorney General, or whoever we're going to do this to, because she explains why it would benefit the community as a whole, which she basically did. If we look at the tape, she basically did in her verbal presentation. She explained further. So I basically think, and I even asked the question, could we rewrite the proposal with better wordage, and would that pass, or is that allowable? And he basically, this was what he said to me. Because I said, well, does that mean nothing that the Friends of Forest Hills Playground asked for the playground can be done? Because he said, anything that a DC agency can do, that we should not give grants to it. For an example, I said, well, if they don't accept this grant, could they come back and ask for a playhouse or a train, imaginary train, to add to the $1 million renovation that's being done now that the city cannot add any more money to? And he said, technically no, because the city can provide that service or provide that. And I said, so what can they ask for on the playground? He basically told me nothing.
You know, Sally.
So I have a problem with this whole thing. I agree with Manoli, agree with Mary Beth.
Here's what I want to do, because to me there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people talking to a lot of different people that don't actually make any decisions like Gottlieb, and people talking to auditors and general counsels and whatever, and it's confusing, and I think we're mixing messages and causing confusion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a resolution to allow, who wants to be the,
I think this is a job for Chair.
fine, I'll do it. So to make me authorized to just deal with whoever's got to deal with this issue to fix it. So I will be the authorized person of the ANC. Is that okay with you, Bob?
To fix it with who? That's what it,
The
who you
Attorney
gonna-
I don't
General.
know. I'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
I don't know who it is.
Well, I'd like to craft that a
but-
little bit more narrowly.
So
And maybe, sorry, can I just make a suggestion?
craft it up.
Maybe
Make it up
if we phrase it to say, I mean, it's not technically an appeal, but
No.
if you are the point person to, let's say, escalate Gottlieb's denial of our grant approval. And, you know, I mean, I think we need to all be kept in the loop. This is
No, I think that's
insane.
I think I'm trying to get is, can we all agree, even though I can't stop any of you from doing so, that one person
I
is
agree
the
totally.
message?
Yes.
And, I mean, I guess I just
Are we
want to be
okay?
sure that.
I mean, look,
Do you speak-
I can't stop any of you from
No, but I mean,
calling
do
whoever you want.
you agree that it's wrong and that we should be able to
I
make a
agree that
grant?
it doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's correct, but maybe it is. I don't know.
You know, one of the
I
things,
don't know.
one of the
But
things.
I'm happy to push it forward and get an actual letter on a letterhead saying.
It may require legislation to
Yeah.
fix our grant procedures by the council.
I mean, $145,000. give or
Mary
take,
Beth, I don't think that's the
in
issue.
the bank.
I don't think
And
that's
we,
the
well,
issue.
it is an issue.
It is.
because
We can't give
give
anything
it
away.
That's not true. We're giving money to
6
her.
of the 7 people, well, I don't know, maybe 5 of the 7 people on the commission are just so eager to give this money back to the community.
I'm not saying no, Mary Beth, but I think we also have to take into account. First of all, I don't know why a commissioner called Gottlieb on this when I thought Bob was going to handle it with the auditor or the attorney general. So,
Well, I got a positive response from the auditor.
Right.
but then Gottlieb was brought into the picture.
Then he got into
Wait,
it.
you said you called Gottlieb
No,
prior to the
Sally
last
called.
meeting?
I called
It
Gottlieb.
Prior
was
to the last
Gottlieb.
meeting?
No, Gottlieb called. Sally called.
I called
Gottlieb on this.
Gottlieb and asked who to go to. And he
Prior
was,
to the last meeting?
prior to the last meeting, and I wrote everybody why I did it, is because he said that other commissioners had come to him.
Another
and-
commission.
I'm sorry, another ANC, 3 other ANCs had come to him with the same similar questions. And he was going to write, which made more sense.
This all happened after.
Yes,
After the
this was after the meeting.
No, I'm saying before the
Oh,
meeting, there
before
was a
the meeting.
query. We were
I
told
didn't-
at the last meeting that there was a query that had already been made.
No. I said that.
Okay, then we gotta look at the,
No,
listen to
what
the
I
tape
basically
again.
said was that that there was this auditor, that there was rulings that said we could not give money for operational causes, and I sent that ruling to Bob.
And then that ended up not being relevant to the
No,
to
it
the
didn't, but
discussion.
then Sally called Gottlieb on this particular grant, and that's how he got into the picture.
Okay.
For,
But all of that's past
for
history.
who to go to.
So yes,
And
I
the-
agree. I second the motion.
Look, are
I'm
we-
sorry.
I mean, I can't bar you from doing whatever the heck you want to do, but generally speaking, are you okay having me be the whatever we've?
I would like to see you start with Gottlieb and see who he talked to, because he might,
That's fine.
He
That's
said
what-
he went to the
I'll
Attorney General.
figure out
He just-
the-
according
I'll
to
figure out a
what,
process.
wait a second, Adam,
No, he
according
went
to
to
what
them,
Sally
too.
just said, he went to the Attorney General. Is that what you just said?
That's what he said to me.
So-
But
When you were making that motion up on the fly, you said to deal with this, and I think what Mary Beth was trying to say is, what do you mean deal with it? What you're trying to do
get a
is
finality on the question of whether the money could be used
Right, to get an authorized response.
Yes.
And if Gottlieb,
Yeah,
Sally
but I
just
think
said,
we need to escalate above
I'm not saying no, but
Well,
Gottlieb,
of course. That's
Sally
what
just said that Gottlieb told her he talked to the Attorney General.
I'll talk to Gottlieb.
I think, so we need to start with him
Sure.
and see what he did or how he even made
I mean,
his
he did
opinion.
not do what I thought he was going to do. He was
Okay.
going to write a letter to the Attorney General and show Manoli, Mary Beth, and myself the letter.
And then you were gonna circulate it.
And
to
we
us.
were gonna circulate it and go
to
through the
seek a
procedure.
final ruling.
He did not do that.
Official.
But you should never have called him Sally,
Okay,
because we had
so the
already said we
motion-
were
so
gonna
the
write a
motion-
I
letter
was
to.
able to call.
Okay, guys, so the motion is that I will
To authorize Commissioner Tope to investigate and escalate this issue and seek a formal ruling on whether we can
Clarifying
give this
whether
grant.
Formal
the
ruling
grant
from who?
can be made,
A formal ruling from
the appropriate agency.
Appropriate,
From
At the end of
whatever.
the day, it's the auditor and attorney general.
It's the
because
Attorney General.
One of
It's
those
the
two is
Attorney
gonna
General.
look and say, yeah.
That's
or no.
correct.
From
It's
Well-
the Attorney
And it's
General.
not the auditor, it's the Attorney
Attorney General.
General.
The auditor will go to the Attorney
Yeah,
General
ask.
for a ruling. But
Yes.
from our perspective as to whether the grant is allowed, it's the auditor.
Yeah.
Now, whether the auditor goes to the Attorney General is a whole other issue, but the auditor says that we can give the grant or we can't, and they'll okay it. And that's really all that matters from our perspective, whether the auditor okays it.
But if he does not okay it, then can we go to the Attorney General? And I think, when I say escalate, I think that you should take it as far as we can. If the auditor says no, then I think we should take it to the Attorney General. I don't know what the procedural, how do you exhaust your administrative remedies in the District of Columbia? I don't know the answer to that.
I
for
think
this
ultimately it's going to be a matter of getting the law clarified by the council.
Well, I think we need to be clearer with this particular grant. I don't think the grant, what's written on the grant proposal is really what should be written, saying that it is for the purpose of the internal to improve the website.
Okay, it's
All right,
too
so-
late.
Too late.
How you
That the
ask
grant is
question
what it is.
relevant,
So-
okay? So here's what I would,
but
here's
that-
what I would recommend. I would recommend that we ask the question in a way that suggests that it is for the public interest.
Absolutely.
So in
Correct.
other words, we're not going to phrase it the way that the playground people
Correct.
phrased it. We're going to phrase it, update the
'Cause
website
that's
for the
the
benefit of
problem.
the
But wait a
community.
second,
That's
Mary,
the problem.
but wait a second.
Then we go back to the Friends of the Forest Hills Playground and we say, we would suggest that you rephrase your grant application.
Correct, and they have been willing to do that. I got a email, which I will send to whoever, and she has said she wants to
Yeah.
make more of a statement of what they're really using for. She made a case, Ally made a case of why it would help the community.
Except.
Okay, well, actually, we've rejected this grant because we can't get the money. So how about, will someone work with them to reapply for the grant, and then we will use that to go and ask a new question based on here's a new
Yeah,
grant.
because
But we want to know the answer before they apply,
Right,
so that they
before
can
we-
word the application appropriately.
But I don't think you can do that.
I don't think
You may have to.
Yeah, see, because they're going to say you rejected it, we didn't allow
You
it.
can't
Okay,
do
so
that.
how can we write, does anybody have a way in which we can
I
do
mean, the
this
only other thing we
grant?
could do is ask the Attorney General
No,
for
we-
what are the criteria.
We can say we don't accept the informal ruling of the
Right.
Office of the
It's an
ANC.
appeal.
We want a formal ruling from the Attorney General.
But if
We don't, we
The
don't,
problem is you might get locked in.
I think the Attorney General is, according to what Sally just said, Gottlieb told her he talked to the Attorney General. You're locked in on this grant application, no matter how you phrase it. The Attorney General and the auditor are not going to go against Gottlieb right now because there is a decision that was made.
No, I don't, no,
Okay, so-
I don't know if the Attorney
No, she
General
wouldn't know.
did that.
But
I
you
don't
said
know
Gottlieb
that.
talked to him.
Guys, I
I don't know
don't
if he talked
wish
to
to
him, he
spend.
talked to the
I don't
office.
wish to spend
Well, I
more
don't
time
know.
on
I
this
don't
topic.
know.
I don't know.
Um,
Let's just go with Adam's motion.
If
Let him
we're okay with
investigate.
this, I'll see what I can do and work on these people
And report
try to
back
get,
to us.
and I'll report back.
Actually, I would
in a
like
month or
you-
so. I don't know how quick this stuff runs. My odds are not quick.
I second.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Call for the question.
Yes.
We're all in favor.
I
of
trust
this?
Adam to do this.
I don't really trust him.
Okay.
Get
So next
going.
up,
Malachi, did you vote?
April minutes. He did. It was all in favor, 7-0-0. Okay, April minutes. They were circulated. There were a ton of comments by email. What we got in front of us? I think there was Karen had an edit. So I'll
Thank
make
you.
it. So what are your
Is
edits?
this right?
If I tried to look at the tape tonight, and I couldn't get on it for some reason. It said somebody was viewing it, and it told me I had 44 minutes, and then it told me I had 39 minutes to wait. So I asked Adam tonight if only one person could watch at a time. But anyway, she has a copy. I gave it to her.
I'm sharing it with.
Anyway, I believe, and I asked Adam tonight, that on the motion from Commissioner Tope on Hearst, that I did vote for it,
That's correct.
that it was 7-0-0.
No, the motion, this first one.
No, I'm talking about the one from Adam on Hearst. That's why I tried to look at the tape tonight.
Okay.
And Adam thought I had done it too.
That's fine. I mean, that was this was my first attempt at
No, I
minutes, and
understand.
so I didn't actually keep very careful track. I'm keeping much more careful track tonight.
Yep.
But that's fine. If you say that you voted for
Hearst
it,
was 7-0-0.
Zero.
Yeah.
Forest Hills Playground was 5-2-0.
Zero.
Okay.
Not 7-0-0. Oh, wait a minute, 7-0-0.
Hearst was 7-0-0.
And you have it right under the
5-2-0.
grant,
Yes.
the Forest Hills, 520.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And
Is anyone-
normally, wait a minute, normally when we waive guidelines and we took a vote, that vote should have been in here.
It isn't.
It is in here.
It says to waive, oh. No, because it says, the motion was approved for the Hearst Elementary Parent Teacher Association grant with 7 voting in favor, none opposed, and one.
Read the
Yeah,
paragraph.
and then it said, and 1 abstaining.
Yeah, that should say 601.
601,
But,
yeah.
but it's in here, because there was 2
No,
motions.
I'm just talking about that one. It can't be 7-0-0 if 1 abstains.
No, it's 601.
I know, but that's not what this says, Sally.
No,
Right,
he's
so
fixing
I
it.
know, he's
He fixed
fixing it.
I
Do you have
know.
any other edits, Karen?
No, I don't think so,
Okay.
because I couldn't look at the tape.
Okay. If needed. we can
Were they
revisit
both
this next
601?
time. Anyone else have edits?
Manoli.
Manoli, do you have edits to the minutes?
Wait a minute, Manoli, were these both 601?
Bob?
I'm fine.
Wait, when Manoli's looking at his notes.
Yeah, I think I've got 601.
For both cases, okay.
No, for only one, because the other one was
Well,
withdrawn.
there's 601 and 601.
So this is for to waive the guidelines. There were 2 motions to waive the guidelines. One was withdrawn.
Okay.
And then the Hearst was adopted 601.
Okay.
And then there were 2 votes on the actual grants. The Hearst grant, I actually have that as 520.
No, that's a Forest Hills is 520.
Oh, sorry, take the back. You're right. No, I have Hearst as 700.
7-0-0.
I think you just had them reversed.
And then this is 520.
On yours.
So we're all set.
I
Great.
think you just have them reversed.
All right, vote on this. All in favor of the revised minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0-0. Last but not least, Bob.
Our,
Financial update.
our latest bank balance is $144,058.92.
Thank you, Bob.
Do we have a job description?
We
yet?
have to circulate and revise pieces together. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
And what about the website?
I
Adam.
have a draft.
We're adjourned, so just on that.
What happened with this?
Oh, I talked to Andrew Klein on this, and I told